I still consider myself a Democrat. I'm a registered Democrat, which is, I think probably makes me fairly unique. I will tell you that there are actually probably millions of Democrats that secretly support Trump. And for a variety of reasons, they just never come out of the closet to admit that they support him. And I think the reason for that is that they're worried about blowback. And I actually got a lot of that. The Democratic Party tried to ruin my business. I lost so much. I think probably makes me fairly unique. And I will tell you, just for supporting Trump, actually, if you cross the Democratic Party, millions of Democrats that secretly support Trump. They will try to bury you. For a variety of reasons, I've been come out of the closet to admit that they support him. And I think the reason for that is that friends of mine that supported Trump privately and they voted for him, but they wouldn't do so publicly. So let's get right into it. I mean, there's a lot of news that happened today. One that really kind of just blew me away was Valerie Jarrett, who is the special advisor to Barack Obama. She said that Barack Obama's administration has been scandal-free. And that is just so outrageous. Anybody that's actually paying attention, anybody that voted in the last election knows that that's ridiculous. So I thought I'd rattle off some of the most egregious scandals. Obviously, there's Benghazi. We all know about that. There's Hillary's email, server. But there's also Fast and Furious. You guys remember that? That was a ridiculous episode where the United States government and the Obama administration actually gave guns and supplies and all kinds of weapons to drug dealers, to cartels in Mexico. And when it came to light that they were doing this, what did the Obama administration do? They stonewalled. They said that we weren't going to cooperate with the investigation. Eric Holder, who was the Attorney General at the time, refused to cooperate with the investigation. He was held in contempt of Congress. That was a pretty big scandal. But let's go down the list here. I've got a little cheat sheet. It was, one of DML's big recommendations. So let's see here. Who was the other one? Oh, remember when the IRS was targeting conservative, particularly Tea Party organizations for investigation? That's just smacks of the political corruption that I think has scared so many people out of Washington. The last thing we want is there to be political retribution for supporting one candidate over another, and that's what I was talking about with the Democratic Party targeting me. But the IRS was actually doing it on behalf of the Obama administration. So if you ran a Tea Party organization, the IRS was targeting you for a particular investigation just because you were part of this political organization. This is the kind of stuff that happened in Soviet Russia. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, obviously the Obama administration didn't send anybody to the gulags, but it's not that far off from it. The next thing that I really thought was crazy, you have to remember the Iran deal and the ransom that we paid, to the sum of literally billions of dollars. How with all of these, and there are probably 24 examples of this. With all of these examples in mind, how can Valerie Jarrett stand up and say that this has been a scandal-free administration? It's just laughable. It's just laughable. So, I mean, the next thing that I will say, and I'd be interested to see, I'm reading your comments as they come in here. Do you think that this permanently destroys the Democratic Party? I think it does. I think that Barack Obama has been such a disaster for the Democratic Party and really for America that I think it could take potentially decades for it to recover. Now, I'm going to take a stop here because I want to show you guys something, okay? I'm going to flip the camera around here. Now, do you guys see this here? This is the Jacob Javits Center. Now, if you were paying attention on election night, you'd remember shots from this building, okay? This is where Hillary Clinton was supposed to have her a big, just crazy celebratory party. She was supposed to break the metaphorical glass ceiling. You see it right there. It's a beautiful building, okay? No doubt about it. Now, what I find just amazing about this building is that it is probably one of the biggest monuments to government corruption and the infiltration of unions to just steal money from government and from taxpayers. And even it's a shining example of the mob and the mafia actually stealing money from government as well. So why would Hillary Clinton pick this building? And I think in a way, and I'm going to show it to you again, I think in a way it was a Freudian slip. It was her tacitly admitting that she's part of this this big political machine. But you know, obviously the American people spoke, and we had a great night, and she wasn't able to ascend to power as she was in the Democratic Party. But this is where it took place, and I'm sure you guys remember those clips of, you know, all of her supporters just in tears. You know, it looked like a scene from North Korea where the dear leader had died. You know, just hysterically sobbing on the floor, rolling around. I mean, these people are, I mean, I've said it on Twitter, I'm going to say it again. You know, I think that an episode of mental illness actually swept the Democratic Party in the aftermath of the election. And I think that it's actually led to the Democratic Party's inability to grapple with the reasons that they actually lost, which is that there's been a wholesale abandonment of the middle class. You know, how can workers in Detroit and Ohio compete with slave labor in China and Mexico City? They can't. They can't. And that's why I was originally part of the Democratic Party, because I thought that we were fixing those problems. If, as has been evidenced by the last 8 years, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. If you look at TPP, which Barack Obama ardently supports, and Hillary Clinton would have moved forward with, it would have gutted what's left of the manufacturing sector in this country. And so, you know, thank God that we're moving in a different direction. So anyway, I just wanted to, I figured while we were in the area, I would walk you by the Javits Center and show you that, unfortunately, you know, I think one day we'll be ready for our first female president. Hillary Clinton wasn't it. And I always really resented the notion that, you know, we should elect her, we should support her just because she was a woman. So anyway, the next thing that I wanted to move on to here is the Russian hacking. Now, this is something that I thought would have died down by now. I said back on CNN October 20th, I said, you know, the reason that Hillary Clinton is pushing this story is because they're trying to plant seeds of doubt in the event that Donald Trump actually wins this election. Now, I think that I've been proven right. At the time, I was called un-American by people on CNN, by many people in the media that wrote articles about that particular episode. But I think that it's true. I think that what we've seen is that they're trying to undermine the Trump administration from day one. They're trying to say, you know, that his election was illegitimate, that he did not win the popular vote. And that forgets the fact that, you know, if he had been trying to win the popular vote, he would have run a very different campaign. But putting that aside, you know, this is an effort to undermine his candidacy with zero evidence. Zero evidence has been provided by the United States government to substantiate the claim that the Russians have intervened in our elections. And zero evidence has been provided to substantiate the claim that any of the emails that were released were modified in any way. And zero evidence has been provided to prove that any of the leaks actually impacted the decision of voters. And so this narrative in the mainstream media is really concerning, because I think that it has long-lasting impacts. It's going to impact the way that he governs. It's going to impact the way that he runs for re-election, should he choose to. And so it's just a shrewd bit of political calculus. And I can tell you, as somebody that was a Democratic consultant that worked in this for quite some time, that this was cold and calculated. They knew running up to election day that there was a chance that he could win. The polling that was publicly provided, I can tell you this from firsthand accounts, was skewed in her advantage. You know, we saw the Huffington Post, they gave her like a 97% chance of winning. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. But anyway, so you know, moving forward, I think that he's got to get past this. I don't think that he can dwell on this forever. The media would love nothing more than to talk about Russian hacking for the next 4 years, because it distracts from the very reason that Donald Trump was elected, which is to get the American middle class moving again, to return jobs here, to secure our borders, which I've said on DML's old show on Newsmax. I said this time and time again. Immigration isn't an issue of excluding people from the United States. We want the best people to come here. But it's an issue of national security and economics. If we want to have a secure country, we need to have secure borders. We need to know who's coming here. We need to know, you know, who's going to be benefiting from, you know, all of the benefits that the American economy provides. So, you know, this is something that I think we need to hold strong on. if we're really going to start focusing in on what's going to make America great again, I'm begging him, don't dwell on the Russian story forever, because if you do, they're going to eat it up. This is the perfect bit of material for them to work with. Now, moving forward here, let's get on to something a little bit more topical. The thing that I've run into time and time again is that from my time as a Democratic consultant, one of the biggest decisions I regret making was working with labor unions. I worked with a ton of teachers unions, and sometimes I had to do things that now make me feel bad. Okay, and I'm going to give you a little bit of inside knowledge that I don't think that you're going to hear from anybody else. Okay, and I remember after Republicans had the Tea Party wave in 2010, and they had a strong performance in the House of Representatives in 2012. Teachers unions came to my firm and they said, Harlan, we're getting beat all over the country. Things are really, really bad for us. The Republicans are going to start, targeting corruption in state houses across the country. How do we beat this back? How do we, keep what we have? And so I won't give you the specific state, but there was a state in the Northeast, and they said we've got a Republican governor and 2 Republican state legislatures, and they're pushing a voucher bill, a school voucher bill. They said if this happens, it's going to kill our teachers. And we'll put aside the politics of that. I'm now in favor of school voucher bills. And they said, Harlan, and my business partner at the time, how do we beat this? We've got about $1 million. How do we work with this? And so we found in there, deep in the piece of legislation that they were going to pass for school vouchers, we found that it would actually modestly raise property tax very slightly. And so what we did was we rebranded that as the voucher tax. We rebranded this entire bill as actually a tax on the people of this state. And what happened was the Tea Party people that had sent new members to their state house, a new governor to that state, they said they were calling into the representatives. They said, we didn't send you to the state capitol to raise our taxes. Now, in all honesty, I will tell you, it wouldn't have raised their taxes very much, and they would have had better school options for it. But that's what we were tasked to do, and I regret it now, and we defeated that bill not once but twice. And I tell you this because I care, and my politics are a little bit more moderate than they were, and I'm not beholden to these special interests anymore. But I think that this is an important thing to keep in mind, because when you start seeing all of these narratives thrown around through the media, when you start hearing people brand issues that you care about, whether it's immigration as racist or, as Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, which is a narrative that they're going to be pushing for 4 years, you have to see it through the prism of how Democrats and consultants and strategists are actually really are trying to influence the way that you perceive the meat of it. Go deeper. That's why I love DML, because he actually takes the time to break down these stories, to cut through the bull. And there's so much of it, man. I mean, I gave you that one example, but there are dozens. There are dozens. And, I think that, the important takeaway from this is that the reason that Donald Trump won this election is because he cut through the bull. He didn't spend time and money on consultants to tell him how to reframe issues so that it would resonate with every single group. He didn't take the language that he was using and run it through a filter. He's unfiltered. That's what people like. That's actually, funny enough, that was the name of Dennis's old show, Unfiltered. But and I think there's actually a lot of commonality between these two guys, between Dennis and Trump. But that's what the American people want now. They want to cut through the bull. They want to cut through this nonsense and just tell us the truth. Just tell us the truth. Getting back to the story, the political story we were talking about with Valerie Jarrett, we've had 8 years of nonsense. 8 years of nonsense. The thing that kills me with this is that, with a president, the impact isn't just about, about the president's performance. It's about how people perceive their government. And faith in government is at an all-time low. And in some respects, that's not a bad thing. In some respects, we need to be much less reliant on government. But the thing that kills me is that, people feel like the United States may be on its dying bed. That we may be beyond fixing this thing. And that scares me, because for the first time, I travel the country, I talk to a lot of different people, and they feel like there's no hope. And for a president that ran on it, hope and change, he hasn't provided it at all. It's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. So, I think that one thing that I would encourage you guys to do is, stay focused on this. Don't let up on social media. I saw last night, I was actually talking to somebody from the Trump campaign, and I won't say who, but they had over 10 billion impressions on Trump-related stuff last time, and last month, excuse me. And this is unprecedented. This is how our current president's going to run his communications. He's not going to run it through the filter of the media. You turn on a lot of these news channels, and they'll tell you one thing, but when you actually really dig down to the meat of what was said, they've changed it entirely. They've ripped out context. They're lying to you wholesale. And I think that that's in part what happened with the Russian story. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. Hillary Clinton stood up on the third debate, and she said that 17 agencies had corroborated the Russian hacking story. Now, she was basing that on a memo that had come from the Director of National Intelligence. And it was signed by 17 different agencies. And I'll give you, I remember it by heart. It says that the hacking was, quote, consistent with the methods and motivations of Russian hackers. Now, that means nothing. That was the most difficult, that was the most aggressively written line in the entire thing. That the Russian hacking, or the suspected Russian hacking, was consistent with the methods and motivations of Russians. That's not evidence. That's not evidence at all. What that is an unsubstantiated claim that she tried to leverage for political gain. And she did it with the assistance of the Obama administration. And so really the theme of this walk and talk, from the Javits Center to the Russian hacking to Valerie Jarrett trying to spin the Obama administration as being scandal-free, is that we've got to cut through the bull. We need to cut through the corruption that has taken Washington by the neck, and realize that there's a better way forward. And I think that what we're building at DML is going to be sort of the counterweight to the mainstream media narrative. It's going to be the counterweight to what has been really the stranglehold on the American people for so long. Because you have to rely on the information that you have. And with social media, fortunately now we have more information than ever. And we've seen this populist wave sweep the United States with Trump's victory. We saw it sweep the United Kingdom with Brexit. We saw it sweep Italy with the Italian referendum there. And we're going to continue to see it sweep through other countries, France, Belgium, the Netherlands. This isn't the last of it. And I feel really optimistic that we can change Washington. We can change this country to be less focused on globalist corporate interests and more focused on you. But we can only do that if we have a mouthpiece here in New York and Washington that has the guts to stand up and say enough's enough. Enough's enough. And people that do that, and there are a handful of them, including DML, they're heroes. They're heroes. Because I was talking about how faith in government is at near an all-time low. Well, if things get much worse, I fear that you're going to lose faith in the entire system. And when you see this happen, and if you're a student of history, when this happens to countries, that's it. That's it. We saw this happen to the Romans. You have to believe in the mission of the government. You have to believe in what you're doing. And if you don't, things start to slip. And and in this country, I think we're so soft. I mean, so many of my peers are more interested in safe spaces and not confronting an opinion that contradicts theirs than actually having a real discussion. And there's really only one side in politics right now that wants to stifle free speech. There's only one side in politics that wants to have a mechanism to drive the political narrative in the media. There's only one side in politics that has a stranglehold on academia in this country, and it's the left. And the left doesn't have a check, and you see this happen with dictators as well. When you don't have checks on power, they run amok, and that's exactly what has happened with Barack Obama. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys. We have a lot of exciting stuff happening this week. I'll be back on Wednesday. Scarlett will be in Tuesday and Thursday. Don't forget to get the app. It's on the Android Play Store right now. So if you just go there, I've actually got it here on my other phone, and it's great. I've been getting regular updates from DML's website. So just go on there. It took me a second to find it, but just go to play.google.com or open up the Play Store on your Android phone and search for Dennis Michael Lynch, and it'll come right up. The other thing I'll say is that it should be on the iOS App Store very shortly. I know that it's just being approved right now. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time. This is my first time doing it alone. I'll be back on Wednesday, hopefully with less rain. It's been raining on me the whole time here, but but it was fun, and I really appreciate it, and I hope to see